ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we are going to be talking about X-Men number 8, which is a part of the Raid on Graymalkin story arc and is part 1 of 4 of that series. And it's off to a great start, though I will say, man, there are some uncomfortable moments in this book. And I'm just going to say right now, I normally don't say this, but I'm going to try to start saying more often because people are always confused about what these videos are about sometimes. But yes, there will be full spoilers ahead for X-Men number 8, Raid on Graymalkin, part 1 of 4. Just FYI. Let's get into it. This issue, it pretty much affirms all the things that I've talked about recently. Beast, when he was abducted in X-Men number 7, looking back at that video, I think I mused about it being the Graymalkin prison guard, which, I mean, yeah, you know, the benefit of hindsight, yeah, it was. But that said, when we get inside the prison and actually see the conditions on the inside, because, well, technically we've seen inside Graymalkin, we've mostly only seen the cells where, you know, like Siren was being kept, and we know there was like a big cell where Prisoner X is being kept. And in the midst of, you know, seeing the inside of it, it makes everything look a lot more grim, because I'm not gonna lie, in regards to Dr. Ellis, she seems like an evil enough person. She hates mutants, so she's clearly not a nice person by any stretch of the imagination. But I've always kind of felt, since she was introduced, that she wasn't really any more problematic than people like Gyrick or William Stryker. Like, these characters are even more dangerous than she is. But it's this issue that makes it incredibly clear she's a hateful motherfucker. Like, I don't know what the X-Men or mutant kind ever did to her, but I cannot wait to find out what the story is, because I feel like it's not really truly here that we see, I won't say the totality of Dr. Ellis's evil, but we definitely see a huge chunk of it. And I'll definitely say, yeah, the conditioning, you know, with the trustees and basically turning them against our own kind, that's evil in and of itself. But I mean, honestly, it's not something we haven't seen before. But it's here where, like, I guess, and you know, it's not to say we haven't seen mutants be brutalized, but we see at a point that Hank McCoy is being observed by Dr. Ellis and a character who I would forgive you if you didn't remember. Back during the Krakoan era, there was this little country called Terra Verde that was working on something called telefloronics. It was like in the early days of the Benjamin Percy X-Force run, and they had created these telefloronics that were very similar in nature to Krakoan technology. And Beast, after the X-Force team encountered these telefloronic assassins and monsters, Beast co-opted the technology and turned it against the country, and even went back later and used it for his own ends. It's one of the many crimes of X-Force Beast that Defenders Beast is having to contend with. And now that he has been abducted, he is now at the mercy of President Lopez, who is the leader of Terra Verde now. During a point in the Krakoan era, I believe it was about roughly around X-Force number 20 and Wolverine number 13, which was during one of the Hellfire galas, there was an ambassador from Terra Verde who was actually overtaken by the telefloronics. That was largely Beast's fault for having used that same technology against him. And basically, Terra Verde has recovered finally from that in some way. Whether or not this President Lopez is a telefloronic himself is another story altogether, but at the end of the day, they want revenge on Hank McCoy, and they plan to throw him into a kangaroo court and basically set him up, you know, just, you know, for optics sake, as if he's going to undergo a fair trial. But ultimately, they're going to execute him. And this is messed up because this Beast is not that Beast. This is a Beast whose memories are only from his time in the Defenders and the Avengers. And of course, the original Recipe X-Men squad. He is not the same Beast that did all those terrible things. So this is why Beast has this I mean, obviously, I think even X-Force Beast would have the same terrified look on his face, or maybe he would have a smattering of indifference on his face. I don't know. But point is, that's why Beast is terrified right now of what's coming, because now he's about to be handed over. To put in a finer point on, and this is something I actually appreciated that Jed MacKay did here with this issue, is that when Beast runs into Jubilee inside of the prison and they're eating this gruel, it's reiterated to us that this version of Beast has never met Jubilee. That's something that I think would also be kind of a shorthand for people that may not even think about that sort of thing. But yeah, Jubilee didn't come along until the 90s. This version of Beast has never laid eyes on Jubilee outside of, you know, maybe looking at documents and files to get caught up on things that happened, you know, in what would effectively be his future. But in the midst of all this, while Jubilee and Beast and Calico are eating their gruel, it's when Dr. Ellis appears and informs Beast that he is going to be handed over to Terra Verde. But there was something I talked about in the previous issue of Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men. I was under the impression that when Calico was captured, it was because Ellis was capturing her for her parents or someone in her family. Turns out, I wasn't far off the mark. Someone in her family is still alive. Maybe her parents did actually survive that house fire, because as we said before, Calico just said she left the house. She didn't warn her parents, so it's only assumed that her parents are dead. We never saw a body, and that's kind of a hard rule in any storytelling medium. If you don't see a body, then it didn't happen. But here it's stated that, yes, someone in her family. Ellis doesn't say who, but it's safe to assume it's probably her parents, or at least one of them. Calico, at this moment, she doesn't want to go back to that. And it just says something about Calico's childhood and upbringing, something we talked about in that previous issue. If you haven't checked it out, it's up here. The thing about Calico is that she had a very rough childhood. Her mother instilled a lot of hatred and bigotry into Calico because she is a mutant and she doesn't want her to be a mutant. So therefore, she's trying to teach herself hatred. And it's not until the previous issue of Uncanny X-Men under Gail Simone that Calico accepted that she is a mutant. Once Gambit had that talking to with her about acceptance and, you know, loving herself, not trying to hide who she is, it's not until then that Calico actually accepts that she's a mutant, because when they first encountered her, Calico is very adamant that she is not a mutant, despite the fact that she has powers that she was all very likely born with. Once you get past all that and you see that, you know, Dr. Ellis is informing Calico of this information, Calico is doubling down, because at this point, Ellis is, and this also kind of lets you know Ellis's bigotry and hatred, it's transactional at best. And I think that's actually worse than being like a dyed-in-the-wool bigot. Like, yeah, being a bigot, bad, full stop. Doesn't matter your reasonings why. But the fact that her bigotry is situational and that her tolerance can actually be bought and paid for is very telling about just how much does she hate mutants. She hates mutants enough that she looks forward to the prospect of sending Beast to Terra Verde, where she knows he's going to be murdered. She's perfectly fine with it. She will sleep so well. As a matter of fact, when Beast stands up to try to defend Calico in her defiance of Dr. Ellis, she literally has him beaten nearly half to death, and even muses about the fact that she may have to knock the price down a little bit off of what she is charging Terra Verde for his extradition. And to take it a step further, when the eventuality happens that, you know, because this is all happening in real time, that Beast has been captured from the previous issue, Cyclops and the rest of the team have just learned Beast is gone. They just now figured it out. And, you know, something that I think is easy to get lost in the sauce is that Beast is one of Cyclops' oldest friends. They're practically brothers. He was a part of the original 5-piece original recipe X-Men with him. So, of course, Cyclops is going to feel some type of way, especially when you consider the fact that, and something he mentions in this issue, that he lost someone who he looked to as a brother. During the Krakoan era, that version of Beast did not exist, and Beast and Cyclops have been off and on the outs even before the Krakoan era. If you go back to, hell, the past, I would dare say 10 years worth of X-Men comics, Beast and Cyclops have been at odds with one another. I would even dare say past almost 15 years of X-Men comics. Beast and Cyclops have not seen eye to eye and have not been maybe more than passingly friendly with one another. So when that version of Beast started going full on Fox News on his bullshit, that was when you could tell that him and Cyclops were the furthest apart they ever could have been. And when that version of Beast, quotey fingers, died, because once again, we never saw a body, it's here where Cyclops, in this era of X-Men, he got his friend back. He got his brother back, which is why they're so chummy. For those, like, you wonder why, like, oh my God, why is Beast so chummy with Cyclops all of a sudden? Didn't he, like, blame Cyclops for every bad thing that was happening, to the X-Men, this, that, and the third, whatever? That was exactly the case, but this is not that same Beast. And that's why Cyclops is raiding on Graymalkin, throwing the entire playbook out because you messed with his boy. That's his homie. That's his road dog. You can't just snatch Beast off the streets and expect Cyclops to not move. And that's exactly what it's gonna do. Even though Psylocke is straight up telling him this is a bad idea, that he is blinded, he has blinders on, he's not seeing the whole picture. But it doesn't matter. He's sending the X-Men to get one of their own. Now, with all that being said, it's at this moment where Dr. Ellis, recognizing that the X-Men are infiltrating them, it's here where we see that when she's speaking to one of the prison guards, who is at that moment taking a break, taking a little 15-minute break, a little smoke break for him, beating the brakes off of Beast, like literally brutalizing him, like it just, like, I'm talking like full-on police brutality here. It's here where Dr. Ellis shows even more of her deplorableness in the fact that she says to the guard as he's talking about going after the X-Men, because I never told you to stop beating that mutie. Dude, that shit was wild. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, God damn, like, what did they do to you, girl? Like, what happened? What happened? Did a mutant kill your parents? Is that what happened? Did a mutant get into the school you wanted to get into, so you feel like because that mutant got in and you didn't? Like, what's happening here? I gotta know. I need to know what is going on with Dr. Karina Ellis, because she is out of pocket. But all that said, yeah, this issue and the commentary that is present here is awesome. Even though technically, yeah, this is kind of a grimdark issue, there are some funny moments in it. I actually really like the spot where, and this is something I think I talked about before when we first got into the From the Ashes era, was, you always know when Cyclops has an X-Men team, he's almost always going to have magic on it. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's just something about it. I don't make the rules. Magic is always going to be there. It just is what it is.
Come on, over here. Pick me. I picked Ken Griffey Jr. Aw, jeez.
And here it is no different. One of the things I always say about Magic and Cyclops is that she loves working with Cyclops because she knows Cyclops has that dog in him, and he is going to turn her loose and let her run roughshod as much as she wants to. But Cyclops isn't letting her do that right now. She makes this comment about how you used to be fun, and he's like, please, I was never fun. And that's the thing that I thought was pretty cool, because it is kind of a self-owned, but also not, because that's one of the things I always thought was interesting about Cyclops, and like, especially even when I was a kid, that there were so many people who hated Cyclops. They thought he wasn't cool. They thought he was no fun. They loved Wolverine more because he was fun and he was cool and he was a rebel. But the thing is, don't get me wrong, I like Wolverine too, nowhere near as much as most other characters, but I liked Cyclops a lot, even as a kid. Reading X-Men comics, watching the X-Men animated series, even, the X-Men movies, maybe not. Even then, I was like, man, I like this guy, because, he's a leader, he takes charge, he does the job that no one really wants to do. Like, there are people who want to be leader of the X-Men that aren't suited for it. Like, Wolverine, I don't think is a suitable leader for the X-Men. I think he's more of, I don't want to say grunt as dismissive, but I think Wolverine works better as a grunt, the guy you tell where to go. Cyclops works better as a leader, or at least a second in command. And I like the fact that he just says, yeah, I was never fun. I think that he wears that as a badge of honor because he recognizes he doesn't have to be the fun one. He has a job to do. I like this. And then, of course, I think the elephant in the room is why are the X-Men going to be going to war with each other? I don't think it's really going to be them going to war with each other. I mean, yeah, the covers may say that, yeah, sure, but I don't think it's going to be in the way people think. I actually don't think it's going to be in the way people think, and I think it's here where, and I don't know, maybe Jed McKay might be pulling the same bit here that he did with the recent issue of Avengers, which, there'll be a video coming out for that later, but in this issue where we see that Blob, one of the trustees, one of Dr. Ellis's hench mutants, there's a point where Cyclops is about to let loose, and technically does, on Blob. However, Rogue shows up, and basically Rogue insinuates the Cyclops is gumming up their works, and you see Wolverine popping his claws out with his little sicko vibes, and Ransom and Jitter, they're looking like they're ready to throw down. But I think it's safe to say, I think there's really, I mean, I don't know, maybe there will be a fight between them, but I feel like it would be honestly, it would be the most contrived fight. It would be the most contrived fight of all time. Because it's like, dude, y'all got bigger fish to fry. You guys are trying to raid on Graymalkin, and you're gonna waste time fighting each other? Like, dude, that's literally, from a tactical standpoint, the dumbest thing you could do. It'd be the dumbest thing you could do. And that's why I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think, well, yes, this was billed as kind of like an X-Men Civil War. It's not really. And I think it's only being billed that way to get people excited to buy it. And I don't think it needs that. I think the story, I mean, granted, we're only one part in. I don't think it needs all those bells and whistles, to try and grab the attention of X-Men fans. I think, X-Men fans are probably going to read this regardless. And I think people who are just comics fans in general who might happen to stumble across an X-Men comic, they'll probably read this just out of sheer curiosity. I mean, it might happen, but I don't think that it's going to be the type of fight people think it is. Like, if it happens, if it lasts more than a page, I'm calling bullshit on the whole thing. But so far, I think it's off to a great start. I really hope they don't go this direction. I really hope the next 3 issues are them actually working together to get this thing done. Or if they do fight, maybe make it like it. Maybe if it's done in such a way where it ends up being more of a diversion to throw Ellis off, that would, I think, be better. Though I think that would also be just a smidge contrived. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.